best thing you can do for yourself is sit with it. Sit in the discomfort. Healing is not an overnight thing, given a lot of the things that we've gone through. And it's about showing yourself grace and patience.
Welcome to The Healing Blueprint. I'm your host, Jill Briansky. On this podcast, I speak with experts from traditional and holistic healing modalities. And together, we share insights, tools, and practical guidance so you can create your own healing blueprint. Let's move into today's episode and get started. On today's episode, we are doing something a little bit different. If you have been listening to our sessions up until this point, you may have noticed that several of our guests have mentioned a book called The Body Keeps Score. Actually, I think it's The Body Keeps the Score. And I feel like we need to take a deep dive into what that means. So in today's session, I have a guest with me, Yvonne Alers. Welcome to the show, Yvonne.
Thank you.
And we are going to be taking a deep dive into what this means, the body keeps score, or in other modalities, we say the issues are in your tissues. Yvonne, have you heard that before? The issues are in your tissues?
No, this is actually the first time I've heard that. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. So other modalities basically are of the idea that anything that comes at us, any trauma, any stored emotions, they get stuck in our cells, they get stuck in our tissues. And so we need to sort of release them. And everybody has their own way of doing that. Do you have your own way of releasing or helping people release issues that may be trapped in their body?
Yes, I actually like to spend some time just getting to kind of have a rapport and build a safety space for them, hold space for them, so that they're able to see through our conversation what types of things they enjoy doing for themselves. Because I do like to incorporate that into the work, whether it's movement, whether it's writing or meditating or breath work. Because I feel that when it really comes from something that they feel comfortable doing, then it just becomes part of their natural day-to-day routine, so that it kind of, I feel like it almost aligns itself. And you said it so beautifully about the cells. It just kind of feels like it becomes part of the cells, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I love this idea of safety, and I work with my clients on safety as well. And I think a lot of people tend to miss that step, that it's hard to do the release work. It's hard to do the healing work, whether you're working with someone or you're doing it on your own, if you don't feel safe in your body in order to create that release.
Exactly.
So can you talk maybe about, from your experience, what may keep somebody from feeling safe in their body?
Anytime there's an experience that they've had that perhaps they may have been conditioned through their own environment or upbringing to kind of suck it up, buttercup, or grin and bear it. Oh, that's just the way life is. Get over it, let it go. Anytime you're telling someone something, or anytime the person is feeling the need to repress and to hold those feelings and not release them, then that in itself does become a situation for them where they don't feel safe in their body. And oftentimes, and I speak from my own personal experience, I recall so many times when it was best for me to just kind of check out of my body, dissociate myself or disassociate myself from the situation, because that was my safety net. I knew that if I looked at it from a different, like I literally just kind of left my body almost, if that makes sense, and I was looking down at the situation, it gave me the comfort I needed. What started to happen is that I noticed a pattern of disassociating so much that I wasn't present anymore. I couldn't recall situations. And I really had to spend a lot of time with myself. And a lot of the work that I've done with others is through my own personal experiences, through my trainings and certifications that I've received, have always come from a place of me doing this for me. I really didn't intend for this to be something that I would do for others, but I found that there was a need out there, and I wanted, and I felt the calling to be that person. and to provide that space for others.
Yeah, and I found that when people dissociate, when I dissociate, the dissociation becomes its own protective mechanism for your body. So instead of being able to digest or move through the emotions that are coming up, they get stuck in our system as, oh, wait a minute, when there's something that feels unsafe, I'm checking out because that's how I'm going to protect my system.
Absolutely.
And then that adds a whole nother layer of healing that needs to happen. You need to create that safe space. You need to create the space that's safe enough to say, hey, it's okay to stay in my body. It's okay to feel these feelings. And it's also okay to at some point allow those feelings to move on because I can be safe without them.
Absolutely. And I'll also add, which is funny, I'm not a big fan, or at least I found in the beginning, I wasn't a big fan of the title, The Body Keeps the Score. Mm-hmm. And I had to really sit with that for a minute because I immediately felt this knee-jerk reaction in my body and immediately kind of said to myself, okay, where's this coming from? And why am I feeling this way? And I didn't realize that for the longest time, keeping the score had a negative meaning for me. It was in situations that I noticed from relationships that people were reminding me of previous mistakes. People were calling me out on things. And it was done in a space that didn't feel safe. That was done coming from a place of trying to belittle me, trying to make me feel bad. And so when I started to kind of digest this, I realized I myself was holding on to that meaning. I was allowing that meaning to kind of stay trapped in my own body. And so I find it interesting that the biggest part of this book is, and the research done, is when we don't work through things, the impact it can have on our brain, our mind, our body. And definitely I witnessed that on my own. And when I sat with it, because I do tend to tell people, listen, the best thing you can do for yourself is sit with it. Sit in the discomfort, and I'll sit with you while you're sitting there. And that's a real part of what I found helped me get to this, to the point where I actually picked up the book again and have decided, you know what, I'll give it a go. I'll pick it up again and try and see and learn other tips and opportunities and exercises, because the book definitely has some great exercises that can also help you work through that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that you're saying sit with it, don't stew in it, right? So sit with it, understand what's going on, run towards the uncomfortability, because that's where the information is, as opposed to stewing in the victimhood of the things that have caused it.
Absolutely. Because the more you stay kind of in that stewing and replaying the situation over and over, the more it keeps you trapped. And anytime a situation similar like that one comes up, there's a possibility of you having an outburst. There's a possibility of you reacting in a way that you wouldn't normally have done had you given yourself the time and space to see why this is still showing up for you. And how can you work through that?
Yeah, and I have also noticed, so that's the internal process. And as an external process, I just want to bring people's awareness to those times where you've been sitting with someone or having a conversation with someone. You're like, wow, why are you acting like a 5-year-old? Or why do you sound like a teenager? It's literally those parts of them that are stuck at that age that have gotten triggered by something that are coming out. So we all carry different parts of us that get stuck at different points.
Yes. And it's also those parts that when you sit with it and you work through it and you show that part love, because the truth of the matter is, at that time that you experienced that situation, your body did what it knew best to do, was to protect you. However that protection came, whether it was to fight, flight, all of that, however it was showing up. And oftentimes we don't honor that part of us. And so we go into this blaming ourselves. Why didn't I do this differently? Or why do I keep overreacting? It's so silly. And why am I letting other people get to me this way? It's all because the child in you just wants that love and affection and wants that time, wants that ear, just wants to feel safe. And the big version of you showing up for that little version of you, and to hold space and to love and to hug. And again, my favorite phrase, you're going to hear that quite a few times. I won't lie, the sitting with it, right? How powerful is it when the inner child realizes she's safe or he's safe? And that the big child, right? The big part of us can see, wow, you were protecting me all along. You were trying to offer and guide me and assist me the best way you knew how, with the information we had as a 5-year-old or as a 10-year-old. And I think it's such a beautiful process that we don't honor and give ourselves enough time to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's also important because you're mentioning talking to the 5-year-old or the 10-year-old or loving those parts of ourselves. And in the back of my head, I'm like, well, if I didn't know anything about this world, I would have no idea what you're talking about. So I think it's important to give some examples of what sitting with those parts of us look like. And I know I've worked with clients where I will have them literally take out a picture of them when they are younger, whatever age feels like the issues are stirring from, and just love on that part. So you're looking at a physical picture, which makes it easier for a lot of people to kind of understand, can I love that part of myself? Can I love that person that's in that picture? How has your experience been when you're working with people? Do you use pictures? Do you use imagery? How do you work with them to bridge that gap between that younger self and the older self?
Again, as part of the kind of getting to know and build a rapport with my client, what works best for them? Are they someone that they prefer imagery? Are they someone that prefers kind of having a guided meditation? Are they someone that prefers kind of moving through that moment? And so I find that whatever is the most ideal for the person, if it's their favorite book or their favorite memory, or an artwork that they did in their favorite stage of their life, and just kind of reconnecting to that part that brought them joy and happiness. And how can we bring some of that into working through that particular area where they're feeling stuck or just holding on to that emotion?
Yeah, so let's stick with the 5-year-old for a second. Let's just say it's a 5-year-old part where the issues are getting stuck in ourselves and in our body, and we're finding ourselves reacting from that part. You find a way to connect the person to memories that feel safe from that time. So cartoons, songs, whatever.
Absolutely.
It always worked for me.
It works for me.
And in doing that, you're basically reconnecting the person not with the wounded part or the part that they feel is wounded. You're connecting them with the part that they feel is whole.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in connecting to the whole, where do you go from there in order to allow that part that is being deemed wrong or bad or unsavory? Where do you allow that part to go?
So during the exercises, once we are able to have that connection with them of something that kind of was a happy place or a happy time or moment for them, then we kind of almost bring them very gently and always at their pace and what works best for them into either kind of like a meditation or kind of a guided timeline where we're able to just kind of take a distant view of the situation, not general, not directly reliving that moment, but having them kind of take a step back and seeing the bigger picture, seeing part of themselves, going through that as an observer and just seeing what areas can kind of be cleared and moved through. Does that make sense?
It makes sense for me. One thing I want to add to that is sometimes people need more support. And I know I found that sometimes when I work with people, we call in the energy of something that feels supportive. I know for a lot of people, like a grandmother feels like this really warm, supportive energy, whether they've passed or whether they're still alive. It's sort of irrelevant. Like we bring in the feeling of being held by whether it's a grandmother or a mother or a father or an animal. Sometimes they bring in the puppies in order to help like that 5-year-old part feel safer and more supported in order to look at, oh, this thing happened to you, you got yelled at, or somebody made fun of you, to look at it in a way where you're not re-experiencing that thing, but you're saying, wait a minute, I've got a team that loves and supports me going in with me. So I'm not alone in this anymore. I can do it different.
And that's part of the kind of getting to know and deepen the connection with my client, because I do realize that not everyone does have or comes from a supportive, loving family environment. And I realize that too can be harsh for some of the clients. So whether it's a teddy bear, whether it's a drawing, whether it's a picture, I love the idea of the picture, something that just gives them kind of what I like to call the lioness security blanket, something that just makes them feel safe and secure, something that allows them to know that they're not in this alone. And I love the idea of a family member. And in those situations where someone does have that one family member that they have gone to in all situations, we do create that space where they can work with them as well, kind of have them alongside with them, if that makes sense. Not literally, but coming figuratively, that they're with them, supporting them.
Energetically.
Absolutely. Energetically. Yes.
Energetically. And that sort of, so I'm going to tangent here for a second, because that is reminding me that we are multidimensional beings. And that I'm not sure we talk about this often enough, that our systems are layered. And so the shock of something emotionally can stick in our system, but also the issues that we haven't dealt with that have come through the layers also get stuck in our system. So we start with the spiritual layer. And if we don't resolve something in a spiritual layer, it goes down to the mental layer. If we don't resolve it in the mental with our brain and thinking and processing, it goes emotionally, right? All of a sudden now we're having a ton of emotions, which in our country, we tend to swallow and hold down. And when we do that, it goes physical. Now it's in our physical body, right? Now we're holding it in our knees, or we're holding it in our chest, or it's becoming anxiety, or it's showing up in so many different ways. And I'm saying that because in the process of walking somebody through releasing stuck emotions in their tissues, it also has to come out of the other layers. Have you found that as well?
Yes, I am. And also because of my Reiki background, that is a big part of it, as well as understanding that by the time it does get to the physical, it's already been bypassed or kind of ignored at all the other levels. And the physical, I always tell people, our bodies, when they're whispering, it's the time to listen. Let's not wait till our bodies begin to kind of scream in agony and pain, because it's been given us clues all along that something isn't right. And we're also in a society where we do tend to kind of ignore and just push through it and get through. You'll be fine. Or, you're popping in a Tylenol thinking, okay, I'm going to relieve this for the next 4 hours. I'll be fine. But the whole time, your body is this beautiful alert system telling you something's wrong. So when we can spend that time working through the spiritual, the reconnecting to your spiritual team, or to reconnecting to God, Creator, whatever that connection is for you. And when it comes to the emotional and mental aspect as well, what are some of the areas to trapped emotions? What are some of the limited beliefs and patterns that you've accepted as your own? A lot of times, the inner voice isn't even our inner voice. It's things that we've heard up from our upbringing, from other people around us who have told us certain things, and we've adopted those words as our own. So even our words have power and have strength over us. And so it's about kind of creating a space where we're looking at everything. It's the whole integrative, bringing a person to wholeness, because we're working through all the different layers. And it can take time. It's not an overnight thing. Healing is not an overnight thing, given a lot of the things that we've gone through. And it's about showing yourself grace and patience while you go through. And patience is not a word that a lot of us like to hear.
I know I don't. Patience is hard.
It is hard. Especially, honestly, patience is hard where everything is at our fingertips. All we have to do, and I don't want to say it now because I don't want to get them going, but you know that those beautiful devices that we have at home, that all we have to do is call it by name and it immediately responds. We ask a question and instant response. So we're so used to having things quickly given and provided to us. What we're doing is that we're creating some of that situation into our personal lives and thinking that healing should be just as fast and that we should see immediate results. Again, when you're working through layers, it can and will take time in some situations.
It absolutely can. And there are also times when it doesn't have to. So for those people that have a shock, right? Something happens, you hear a loud noise, something just like shocks your system, and they stick in the fight, flight, or freeze, right? Their nervous system gets activated. There is a way in that moment to say, you know what, this is happening. And I'm looking at my dog as I'm talking to you. So I'm going to use my dog as an example, because I think our four-leggeds tend to be very helpful. So a dog, when it gets scared, when it's fearful, right, it gets its hair up, right? The tail goes straight. Everything just sort of tenses. The same thing happens with us, right? Our behavior when something comes at us that we feel fearful in that moment, everything tightens.
Yes.
The thing we do as humans, though, is we hold on to the tightness. What my dog does is the second that fear is gone, she shakes it off.
Yes.
She has a little shake, and then like the tail starts moving again, and she starts wiggling, and she's loose, and she's not holding on to the shock to her system, this fight, flight, or freeze. Her nervous system goes right back into regulation, right back into balance. And I feel like if we as humans can learn to redo that, so that when we have our moment and then we come out and we just sort of shake it off, we don't have to hold on to these things so much.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I always think of that song. I believe it's from Taylor Swift, Shake It Off, or something of that nature, because however you choose to shake it off, whether it's standing there and dancing or hopping or whatever it is that works for you, just a simple movement can really just get that energy flowing and going. And you're right, our four-legged loved ones are our best teachers. And they teach us so much about not holding things. How many times, they may have done something and they just kind of give you that look, and then they, shake it off, wag their tail, and they're back to being lovable and cuddly and everything. And we as humans have learned to kind of give ourselves a hard time when we're going through things. We criticize and tell ourselves, I can't believe I'm still holding on to that. Well, of course you're holding on to it. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel like you can, release it, then it makes perfect sense that your body's going to hold on to it. Awareness that it's there is the first step towards healing.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
And that's really, really well said. Having the awareness to know something happened where you didn't feel safe and your body did what it knew to do in order to protect you. And then approaching it without criticism, without judgment, and perhaps maybe with a little bit of compassion and a little bit of patience.
The compassion and patience, I find, is probably the thing that we all, or that most of us, I don't want to say all, but that oftentimes most of us might need a little extra time with, because it's become easier for us through time to criticize and judge ourselves harshly when we aren't able to get through something, when we aren't able to work through it. And we are just so tough on ourselves. And I remember there would be times when I would say to others before I was on this path, I would say, I don't need anyone to judge or criticize me because I do a darn good job on my own. And I did. I was harsh with myself. When I think back to my negative self-talk and the ways I would be hard on myself, it makes sense that my body was holding on to all of that. It's all it knew. And when I created the space for myself, when I allowed myself and gave myself permission to work with it, that's when I began to feel a sense of lightness that I had it. And I will say, I never realized how many darn tears I had. I didn't think it was humanly possible to cry that much. I was like, where's all this water coming from? I know I'm an Aquarius and, one of those water bearers, but gosh, I felt like it was a river. I felt like Justin Timberlake, Cry Me a River, that song, because I just felt like I was a river just pouring and pouring. But my body had been holding on to it for so long. It had to come out. And I'm so grateful that it did come out, because it has given me a different perspective when someone is going through the same experience or similar.
Yeah, and you're reminding me of things that just about every healer that I know, or anyone who helps other people heal or feel better, we've all traveled this path of beating ourselves up and saying, hey, I don't really want to do this anymore. And finding ways, we all find our own ways to stop or to lessen or to bring in more compassion and bring in more love and find a way to work through some of these old traumas. It's not that these people, myself included, yourself included, right, that we identify like I am a healer because X, Y, or Z. We all have the ability to heal. Our bodies know how to heal. It's about making a choice and making a decision that I don't want to be mean to myself anymore.
Yes. And thank you for saying that, Jill, because it actually reminds me of my days as a martial artist. And I remember that I was the only woman in the dojo. And at the time, I took pride in being able to keep up with the guys. And the workouts themselves were intense. The sessions were intense. And now I'm at a point in my life where I appreciated that part of my life. I needed that at that time, the martial arts. I needed to feel the confidence and the self-esteem and everything that I was missing that the martial arts gave me at that time. I began to realize that the more I started to love my body and to really incorporate self-care, the more I didn't have to have it be physically beaten either through drills and boot camps and stuff like that. And again, I'm talking about boot camps as it relates to the martial arts. I'm not talking about physical, the physical exercise, but it really was such an eye-opener for me, because I didn't realize how much I really wasn't being kind to my body. I didn't know how to love my body. I didn't know how to love me. And it was learning self-love and self-care was a process. And I'm not going to lie, it's still a process sometimes. I still have my moments when I have to remind myself, my body's saying we're tired, and I can tell myself, okay, one more thing, just one more thing. And I hear my body saying, no, we're tired.
Yeah, but self-love, I mean, I think you're nailing it right there. This self-love piece that most of us aren't taught is important or how to do. I remember when I was in my late 30s, I had a spiritual teacher who came up to me and he's like, "Do you love yourself?" And I went, "What? No, are you out of your mind?" Like, it didn't even cross my mind that I should love myself. In fact, I thought he was insane for even mentioning it. I seriously was like caught off guard. What do you mean love myself? Why on earth would I do that? And that moment is in my head, it's in my body. I come back to it frequently to remind myself that that was the turning point where I heard myself. And then I thought about it and I'm like, well, that's sort of nuts that it's not even in my consciousness to love myself. And that's where my journey really took off in this healing the old wounds. And it took off, as you're saying, like finding that love of self. For me, my first moment of finding that self-love was a friend who said, "Hey, have you ever looked at yourself in the eye in the mirror and said, 'I love you'?" And again, I said, "Why on earth would I want to do that?" I finally did it. I remember exactly where I was sitting in my car. It was a bright sunny day. I was waiting for somebody. I can't remember who. And I flipped down the visor in the car. And I was like, all right, we're just going to do this. I looked myself in the eye and I cried hysterically for about 5 minutes. That was my first experience. So I'm saying that for the people that don't know where to start. And I don't know if you have any other tips for the people that don't know where to start on this self-love journey.
I want to actually add to what you just said because I remember the first time I had heard of mirror work was through Hay House. I think it was Louise Hay. And I remember trying like for 21 days. And the idea of looking at the mirror and saying, "I love you, Yvonne Alers." I had the hardest time saying it because as soon as I looked in the mirror, I wanted to say, "Oh my goodness, I look so tired. And oh my gosh, my skin is so dry." And I just wanted to point out all the flaws with me. And as I started to say, "I love you, Yvonne Alers," I found that it was so healing and uplifting. And oh my goodness, again, the emotional release, right? It's one of those things that you go through and it gives you such an appreciation for who you are as a person. And I definitely would highly recommend. Mirror work is great. Also, if you're someone that's drawn to affirmations, if you're someone that's drawn to writing or whatever it is that allows you to kind of put into motion some of these emotions, by all means, try it. Give yourself that opportunity. And of course, I'm going to say it one more time because it wouldn't be me if I didn't. Sitting with it, not stewing, sitting with it and seeing where that discomfort comes from because it's coming up and it's showing up for you for a reason. And it's time. And as you make time for yourself to kind of create that space to work through it, you'll be surprised at how amazing you are and how intuitively you know exactly what you need in your body or what you need in that moment.
Very powerful, very helpful. Any final words for our listeners today?
The hardest thing that I found, at least what was hard for me, was reminding myself that I wasn't defined by my past. I wasn't defined by any of my experiences. It's how I was showing up each and every day. And every day is a new day. And when you come from that place, at least for me, it was huge to show myself love and grace, but most importantly, compassion. If you can show yourself compassion for the person that you are and some of the things you've gone through, you'll be surprised just how much you start to appreciate and love yourself more.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you. And if someone wanted to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
The best way is feel free to reach out to me at AlersYvonne@gmail.com or on my website, YvonneAlers.com for, sessions, all that fun stuff. It's all in there. You know me, I like to keep things short, simple, and sweet.
All right. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap for this episode. Honor what landed, release what didn't, and we'll see you next time on The Healing Blueprint.